So the next service we're going to be self-hosting is Browserless. So I've only used this for automated testing and very simple scraping using Puppeteer. So I'm going to show you how to self-host it and how you can run it, run your Puppeteer code, a simple Puppeteer script, using your self-hosted instance. So let's get into it. So first thing again is we're going to be creating the project. Call it Browserless. Click into the production instance. I'm going to add the resource. Select Browserless. Select your server. And we're going to change the service name to just shorten it. Same thing with here. We're going to click edit on the service to shorten the domain name that's being used for the deployment. And so then we're just going to hit, actually just before we hit deploy, we're going to go into the environment variables because there's a variable here for the token that we need to set. So we need to have a token to access the API. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter in a simple string. And in my case, I just put blah, blah, but you're going to want a complex string that's hard to guess. In this case, it's just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm putting blah, blah. And so then we go back to the server. Actually, let me just make sure it's saved. So everything looks good. I'm going to hit deploy and we can wait for the containers to be started. So as we can see here, the container has been created and started. So we just need to wait for it to say healthy, and then we can access the URL. And look at that. That was pretty quick. So let's open up a new tab. And as you can see here, by accessing the URL, it says no route or file found. So it doesn't mean that this isn't working. It just means that actually it's not expecting us to access the routes directly like this. It's expecting us to use it as an API. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our IDE. I'm using Cursor. So we're going to create a new project. So I'm just going to create a new folder called Browserless. And then inside this folder, you're going to initialize your package manager. I'm using pnpm, so I'm going to do pnpm init. But if you're using npm, you can just use npm init. It'll do the same thing, which is initialize a package.json. And so now we can add libraries to our folder, to our directory. And we're going to add Puppeteer. And so now that we've added Puppeteer, we're also going to create an index.mjs file. And now we're ready to use our IDE. So let's open up our IDE at this file location, at the folder location. And so now we see the files that we've created. So we've got our package.json here, and it doesn't really matter that the main was pointing to index.js, but I just changed it to MJS anyways. But we're going to be running this script using Node anyways. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import Puppeteer. And Puppeteer can be used two different ways. As you can see here, the first way, Puppeteer, or Cursor rather, wants to autocomplete and launch the local browser. And so this is what this command would do. It would launch our local Chromium browser. But we don't actually want to use Puppeteer like this. We're going to connect to our self-hosted instance. And so to do that, we're going to be using a bit of code. And that's slightly different to launch. We're going to be using connect. So we're going to do puppeteer.connect. And here it's proposing the browser URL. And it isn't what we're going to be using. Actually, we're going to be using Browserless endpoint, which is the, actually no, let me use the browser URL just to see if this works. The WebSocket endpoint, I've tested this before and it worked with it, but I'm not sure I paid attention there because I don't think we need to use the WebSocket. So let's just do it like this. So we're going to use the URL that we deployed to. So let's go back to our deployed URL, and we're going to paste that in here. If I can just type that in there, and then we're going to do slash, and this is where we're going to add the token that we added earlier. So I'm hard coding it here. You obviously should never do this if you are going to push this to GitHub. What you should do instead is create a .env file, and then you add a .gitignore file, which is going to include the .env and the node modules. And so this will say that this should not be part of the Git repository. And in your .env, this is where you would add your token, like this, for instance. And then you would use your token by doing something like this. And then you would do process.env.token, but you also need to inject the token into this script. So you can do that using something like dotenvx. So this right here, and actually you can use that as part of your script. So why don't we just do this since we've already done most of the legwork already. So we're going to use dotenvx to load our token into our script. And so to do that, I'm just need to refresh myself on the command that we need to run. So we could install .envx globally and then run something like this for our command, or we can install it locally and then update the script. So in my case, what I'm going to do is install it locally for the project only, and then create a new start script, which is going to be very similar to this. And we're going to run the start script. So let's do that. So the first thing, we're going to go into the package.json, add a new start script, which is going to be this, obviously MJS here. And we're going to remove the production because we don't actually have a production env file. We can remove the test script because we don't actually have any test files for this, nor are we going to be creating any. And so we also need .envx, and to install it though, it's not just .envx. I believe it's pnpm adds .envx/.envx. But I just want to confirm that before I run that. Yep, right here. So we're going to do that. I'm going to add .envx. And so now we are able to theoretically run index.mjs using the env file that we are loading. So the next step is, we're connecting to our browser here, but we also have to open up a page and just take a screenshot just to make sure that the production instance of Browserless is in fact working. And then you can do whatever you want with Puppeteer. You could scrape websites, you could use it for testing with Playwright. But we're just going to take this to the step where we know it works, and then you can let your imagination run its course. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to assign a page variable, and it's proposing some good code here, so I'm going to accept this one. I think we are going to end the script here. It's proposing browser.close. I don't know if it's necessary, so I'll leave it out for now. And now we're going to run pm start, or if you're using npm run start. So I'm going to run pm start right now. And we've got an error. And so I found out that the error was because I was using browser URL instead of so I was using browser URL instead of browser WebSocket endpoint. I'm not sure if this is the correct way to do this, to be honest. The error seems to be like a port issue because it's saying, connection refused, and we're trying to access port 3000. So I think it's a port issue. I didn't want to delve too deeply into this. So this works, and the script, what it does, it basically goes to example.com, takes a screenshot, and calls it example.png. And so here's the output. So as you can see, it works, and we've correctly injected our token. Everything works. So I think this is where this tutorial is going to end, as we've successfully self-hosted Browserless and used it. And of course, there's a lot of use cases with Browserless. It's quite interesting to be able to self-host it, because let's say you're using it for automated testing. You can decrease the load of your pipeline by using a self-hosted instance, for instance, among the many other use cases. So, PDF generation, website monitoring, SEO audits, all this stuff. There's a lot of possibilities with Browserless. So there you go. This is how you self-host Browserless. And so in the next video, we're going to be moving on to self-hosting change detection.